Imagine 30,000 warriors charging uphill into what looks like certain death. 3 days of brutal, grinding slaughter against fortress walls that seem impossible to breach. Bodies piling up, arrows raining down like a storm of iron. And then, on the 4th day, something happens that will literally rewrite the map of the ancient world. The attackers suddenly retreat. Tents collapse. Wagons roll away, the dust of a broken army fleeing for their lives. But here's the thing that's going to blow your mind. That retreat? It was the most brilliant military deception in human history. What looked like defeat was actually the jaws of a trap closing around 100,000 of the most elite warriors the Persian Empire could throw into battle. And when that trap snapped shut in 642 AD at a place called Nahavand, it didn't just destroy an army, it ended a 400-year-old superpower in a single, catastrophic afternoon. This is the story of how superior thinking absolutely demolished superior numbers, and how one general's genius turned his enemy's greatest strength into their most fatal weakness. Let's rewind and set the stage, because you need to understand just how insane the odds were here. The Sassanid Persian Empire had been an absolute titan for 4 centuries. We're talking about a superpower that went toe-to-toe with Rome, that traded blows with Byzantium, that ruled over massive territories and commanded resources that would make modern nations jealous. But by the 640s, Persia was hemorrhaging. Decades of catastrophic wars had bled the empire dry. King Khosrow II had overextended so badly that his own people assassinated him. And what followed was pure chaos. Emperor after emperor murdered. Children and puppets propped up on the throne only to fall weeks later. The once mighty empire was collapsing from within, gasping for air, desperately trying to hold itself together. And then, from the Arabian deserts, came something Persia never saw coming. Arab armies, united under a revolutionary new faith, exploded across the region like a sandstorm with swords. Led by the Rashidun Caliphate under caliphs Abu Bakr and Umar, these warriors fought with a fervor that stunned the ancient world. They believed martyrdom in battle guaranteed paradise, and that belief made them terrifyingly effective. In 636 AD, they met the Sassanids at the Battle of Qadisiyah and crushed them. Not just defeated them, crushed them. They seized the Persian capital of Ctesiphon, sent Emperor Yazdegerd III fleeing eastward like a hunted animal, and suddenly the unthinkable became reality. The Persian Empire was actually, genuinely dying, but Yazdegerd wasn't ready to let his civilization vanish without one final, desperate stand. He made a gamble that would either save his empire or seal its doom forever. He called for the largest army in Persian history to assemble. Every provincial garrison, every royal guard, conscripted farmers, the elite Savaron heavy cavalry, those ironclad nightmares on armored war horses. Sources vary, but we're talking about 100,000 troops or more. And to command this civilization-saving force, he chose Feruzan of House Miran, a man from one of Persia's most prestigious military families. This wasn't just an army. This was Persia's last breath, its final throw of the dice. Everything it had left channeled into one massive, desperate military instrument. Feruzan knew exactly what he was doing when he chose his battleground. Near Nahavand in the western Iranian mountains, the terrain was a natural fortress. Steep hills, high ridges, narrow valleys that funneled attackers into kill zones. Perfect positions for archers to rain death from above. Ambush terrain that dreams are made of if you're defending and nightmares are made of if you're attacking. Feruzan looked at this landscape and saw an impregnable fortress. He positioned his 100,000 warriors, built his defenses, and waited. When Caliph Umar heard about this massive Persian force, he knew this wasn't just another battle. This was existential. He chose Numan ibn Muqarrin to lead the response, a methodical specialist known for tactical brilliance. Numan marched out with 30,000 battle-hardened veterans from Kufa, Basra, and Syria, 30,000 against 100,000 in a fortified mountain position. The math was absolutely brutal. Let's talk about just how impossible this situation was. Military doctrine will tell you that attacking a fortified position requires at least 3-to-1 odds in your favor. Numan was facing 3-to-1 odds against him. Retreat meant the Persians would launch a counteroffensive and potentially destroy the entire Arab advance. Waiting meant the Persians would just build stronger fortifications. The only option was to attack an impossible position and somehow, impossibly, win. But Numan understood something that Feruzan didn't. Superior thinking beats superior numbers every single time, but only if you can make your enemy play your game instead of theirs. The Persian defensive position was an absolute masterpiece of military engineering. High ridges gave them perfect observation of everything below. Steep slopes meant any attacker would be fighting uphill, exhausted, exposed to arrow fire the entire way up. Rocky outcrops created natural choke points that funneled attackers into designated kill zones. Feruzan's engineers had dug trenches bristling with sharpened stakes. They built wooden palisades reinforced with iron spear points. They created overlapping fields of fire where every angle was covered and reinforced. It was psychological warfare through defensive design, meant to break an enemy's spirit before the fighting even started. Behind these fortifications waited 100,000 warriors. Infantry veterans who'd fought Byzantine legions, archers and slingers positioned on elevated platforms with calculated kill zones and overlapping fire. And in reserve, the true terror, the Savaran heavy cavalry. These weren't just horsemen. These were iron-armored riders on armored war horses, carrying massive lances, positioned for devastating downhill charges. Feruzan's defensive system was layered brilliance. To breach it, an enemy would have to cross open ground under missile fire, breach trenches while being stabbed by spears, scale palisades under close combat, and then face fresh cavalry reserves, all while fighting uphill the entire way. The command structure was established, roles predetermined, and the beauty of it was that the Persians didn't need to maneuver at all. Their strength was in staying put, letting the enemy come to them and bleed. When Numan's 30,000 troops arrived and saw what they were facing, the situation must have felt hopeless. No siege equipment, no artillery, just raw courage against engineered death. Feruzan watched from his command position with supreme confidence. For 3 days, there were skirmishes and probing attacks. The Arabs seemed hesitant, recognizing the impossibility of what they faced. And then, on day 4, Numan made his move. The first Arab assault looked like desperation. 30,000 warriors charged uphill into a hurricane of arrows and stones. They reached the outer trenches and fought with everything they had. But it was horrific slaughter. Numan ordered a retreat, and his bloodied army limped back down the slopes. Feruzan smiled. The enemy had learned their lesson. The second assault was even worse. Arab cavalry tried to flank while infantry hit the center, but they were massacred in crossfire. Bodies carpeted the slope. Survivors fled in what looked like total panic. Persian morale soared. Feruzan was satisfied. His defenses were intact, his army unbroken, and he expected either a third doomed assault or complete Arab surrender the next morning. But that night, something strange started happening in the Arab camp. Persian scouts reported chaos. Tents collapsing, wagons rolling south, cavalry scattering. every sign of a broken army in retreat. What Feruzan didn't know was that every single movement was choreographed by Numan. This was possibly the most brilliant psychological operation in military history. The goal wasn't to break through the fortress. It was to make the Persians abandon it voluntarily. When dawn broke, scouts confirmed the Arab retreat. Some Persian officers urged caution, but Feruzan saw opportunity glittering before him. Here was a chance to finish a broken enemy in the open, to use his superior numbers and devastating heavy cavalry to complete their destruction. He gave the order that would doom his empire. 100,000 Persian troops poured down from the hills, abandoning their impregnable fortress, chasing what they believed was a defeated foe. The trenches emptied. The palisades stood unmanned. The perfect fortress became a ghost town. Numan was waiting on flat ground, and the instant the Persian army committed, the trap sprang shut with devastating finality. The retreating Arabs suddenly wheeled around into perfect battle lines. They were no longer fighting uphill against fortifications. Now they could maneuver, could fight their kind of battle, could use speed and coordination instead of brute force against stone walls. The Persians were caught completely off guard. Their formation stretched and scattered from the rapid pursuit, gaps opening in their lines. They were at maximum vulnerability, and the Arabs transformed into a coordinated war machine. Infantry wheeled, cavalry struck, both flanks simultaneously. The hunters had become the hunted. The Persians desperately tried to reform, but it was too late. They'd been lured from their fortress and caught in open terrain. No high ground for archers. Infantry scattered. Heavy cavalry still trying to maneuver into position. And then Numan delivered his master stroke. Hidden Arab cavalry erupted behind Persian lines. The Persians were fighting in three directions at once. Supply wagons scattered. Officers shouted contradictory orders. Disciplined formations fractured into chaos. Panic spread like wildfire. And panic is the absolute killer of disciplined troops. Numan himself fell in the fighting, struck down by arrow or blade. But the Arab assault never wavered. Command passed seamlessly to Hudhaifa ibn al-Yaman, and the pressure only intensified. Persian cavalry scattered. Infantry fought on multiple fronts. And then the center collapsed, followed by the wings. Feruzan was killed, possibly trampled by his own panicking troops. Both commanders dead. The Persian chain of command shattered, and the last army of the Persian Empire simply disintegrated. The slaughter was absolute. Thousands of Persian dead carpeted the plain. Survivors fled in all directions, abandoning weapons, armor, honor, everything except the desperate hope of survival. When Emperor Yazdegerd III received the news, his world ended. No armies remained. No fortress could save him. He fled deeper into Iran, lived as a hunted fugitive, and was eventually assassinated. The Arabs called Nahavand the victory of victories, and they weren't exaggerating. An empire didn't fall to superior force. It fell to superior thinking. The most dangerous enemy isn't the one with more soldiers. It's the one who makes you defeat yourself. Numan turned Feruzan's greatest strength into his fatal weakness. And in doing so, he didn't just win a battle. He ended a civilization.